So in this webinar, there'll be 3 parts. The first part is a brief introduction to CLOSER and CLOSER Discovery. The main part will be a live demonstration, and then at the end there'll be a question and answer session. If you have any questions as we go along, then please add them to the chat as you think of them, and Sophie will compile them, and then at the end I'll do my best to answer them. So let's look at what CLOSER is briefly. So CLOSER is a consortium of UK longitudinal studies. Our aim is to maximise the use, value and impact of these studies. We were funded by the Economic Social Research Council and the Medical Research Council, and so we are cross-domain in terms of social science and biomedical focus. These are our partners. We have 8 partner studies. That includes 4 national birth cohorts, 3 regional studies and 1 UK panel study. Some of you may be familiar with some of these studies. When we look at discovery later, you'll notice there are 9 studies, and this is because we're adding further studies to CLOSER Discovery and also CLOSER. So there'll be 11 new studies joining CLOSER, and there'll be an announcement about that in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out. These are CLOSER's core areas of work, and we're obviously going to be focusing on data discoverability here, but I did want to mention the training and capacity building aspect in terms of CLOSER's Learning Hub, because if you're not too familiar with longitudinal studies, but you're interested in using the data, then this is the place to go, is the Learning Hub. This provides everything you need to know to get started with using longitudinal data. Okay, but back to CLOSER Discovery. So when we first started this project, a lot of the information related to longitudinal studies in terms of what data collected and when, for example, was spread across the different websites and was held in different formats and different resources. If you were lucky, you could get hold of data dictionary and a PDF of the questionnaire. Often the information was held in internal documents or even was held in knowledge within a couple of people at the study. So we wanted to have one place where researchers could go and search across all of the studies, as well as providing the context needed to understand the data and the variables. So we wanted to save researchers time searching and finding the data, but also help provide context so you could choose the correct variables. We also wanted to help researchers spend less time getting to know a particular study, as well as making it easier to identify similar questions and variables within and across studies. So hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate some of these advantages to using Discovery when we look at Discovery together in a minute. Before we do that, 2 important things to note is that all of this context and information surrounding the study and the data, this is all of the metadata, and this is what Discovery is based on. So CLOSER Discovery doesn't hold the data itself, but it should help direct you to where you can find the data. Discovery is continuously being added to, so it's never going to be complete. So you should just be aware of that when you're searching. And I can point out where you can check the current content of Discovery in the demo. So let's switch over to Discovery and start the demo. Okay, so this is Discovery's homepage. So you can see at the bottom, it has some counts of totals of what is currently in Discovery. And as I said, this will be added to, so by next month, these numbers will have gone up. In terms of how you navigate and use Discovery, there are many different ways to do that. But I tend to think of 3 main ways to use it, which is through search, explore by topic, and general browsing. So let's first start with searching, and I'm going to put a search query on the front in the home search. I'm going to search for alcohol, and this takes us to our search results page. At the top of the page is a summary of our search, and then we have our results. Next to each result, there is an icon which explains what it is. So this is a data set, So here we can see it's found the word alcohol in the dataset name. Here we have a question where it's found the word alcohol in the question text. And if we scroll down, we can see in this question, it's found the word alcohol in the question text and in the question answer. Now we have over 2,000 results here, so we want to narrow that down to a more manageable number, and we can do that by refining by item type. So here you can see the counts of the different items in our results, so over 2,000 variables, over 150 questions. But say we're interested in variables, I can tick and refine by that. It's still quite a lot, so I'm also going to refine by study. In this case, the Southampton's Women's Survey. Click refine, and I'm also going to refine by life stage, and I'm going to choose pregnancy, birth and infancy, and refine. So this study is quite unique in that it recruited women before the conception of the children that would then be part of the study as the cohort members. Now you can see we have a page results just full of variables, and underneath each one it shows the context of where that variable is from. So the study, the sweep and the data set. I am going to click on the variable name to find more information about that variable. So this is the variable description page, which has summary statistics. This might be useful for when you're deciding whether it's worth going through the effort to request a particular variable, like will there be enough statistical power in these numbers that we're seeing in the frequencies in terms of valids, invalids, etc. Representation shows how the variable was coded. Source questions shows what question created that variable. And then finally, lineage, which shows you more detail about how that variable was created. This is quite a straightforward one, but we can look at a more complicated example later on. So say I'm keen on using this variable and I want to keep a note of it. What I can do is add it to a list. And I do that wherever I can see a plus, I can add it to a list. So I'm going to add it here, and you can see my list has now gone up to 1. Now say I wanted to find out how to get access to this variable from this data set. I could do that through looking at my list, or I can also do by looking at the top here and what is called breadcrumbs. So this shows the study, the sweep and the data set. And if I click on the data set, this gives us the data description view, and along with some summary information, it shows you where the data is available from. In this case, as this is an MRC funded study, the MRC funded studies always have their data held within the study themselves. So this link will take you to the study website where you can then request the data. For the ESRC funded studies, their data is held within the UK Data Archive, and so this link will be a DOI to that data set. Other useful views that we can use on this page are the Explore dataset. This gives us a list of all of the variables within this dataset, and if we click on a variable, it will show us this variable view that we saw earlier. If we go back, if we click on the name of the dataset, this will take us to a summary of the topics that are covered in this dataset. And if we go through health behaviour to alcohol consumption, these are all the variables within that dataset related to alcohol. So next we're going to look at a different way to explore using the topics. If we go back to the home page. So that was how you do a simple search, and now we'll do a explore by topic. If we click on topic here, this is a list of CLOSER topics. We have two levels. So this is the first top level, and then there's another set of topics within that, like subtopics. These topics are based on HACCP and MESH, if you're familiar with those. And if I navigate to health behaviour and alcohol consumption, this shows us a list of all of the variables which are mapped to this topic. So every question and every variable in Discovery is mapped to one of these topics. If we click on a variable, it shows the variable view again. If we click on the question mark, it will show all of the questions related to that. So this is useful. This is a useful way to make sure that you get all the questions and variables that you're interested in addition to the searching method. So as you can see, we've got 420 questions which are related to alcohol consumption, and this is more than the earlier search. And this is because there are questions which don't have alcohol in the text or the answers. Like this example, how many glasses? It doesn't contain the word alcohol in the question, the answer, or related variables, and so it wouldn't get picked up on the search. So you should use different methods to make sure that you find all the questions and variables you're interested in. As this is still a high number, we can also filter on this as well. And I'm going to choose Avon longitudinal study of parents and children and adolescents. It reduces the number to something more realistic to look through, and I can move through the pages like this. I'm going to choose this question, and this will give us a question view, which is very similar to the variable view, although it's reversed. So we can see the question text and the answer type, the usage of where it fits within the questionnaire, and then the variables that are related to it. So say we wanted to know more context about this variable, say for example, because of the number of not completed and invalid, we might want to look at the questionnaire in more detail. And we can do that by viewing the complete instrument. So if I click here, so every question that is in Discovery is documented within its whole questionnaire. And you can see that through the flowchart view, this view, the summary view, which is a simplified version of that. Details shows us a link to where you can find the PDF, and then the PDF itself within Discovery. If we go back to flowchart and look at this in more detail, you can see the top here is some of the text that was contained within the questionnaire, and then the sections that they were broken into. And if we navigate to where our question is within the alcohol section and find our question here, you can see that it is within some routing or some filtering related to the question before. So we can see that only those who've ever had a whole drink actually answer this question, which might be why there's less valid numbers in that variable. If we click on the question, we can then see the question view that we've seen before, and I'm going to add that to my list. If I wanted to add the variable associated with that to my list as well, I can click on variable and then click on the variable name to go to the variable view, and then I will add that. Again, I've got the breadcrumbs telling me where I am, and I can click on the data set to then find the location of where to access the data. Okay, so let's go back to the home page. So we've looked briefly on how you do a general search, and we've looked at how you can explore by topics. The other way that you can use the website is by browsing. So if you know a specific questionnaire or data set that you're interested in, you can navigate straight to that. Or if you want to know more about a study, you want to find more information about it, then you can browse that study. And that's what we'll do now. So we'll look at the National Survey of Health and Development study. So we'll just click on that study name. And then this provides us with high-level information about that study in general. So explains what the study, how it was set up, it linked to the website, the population, all of the sweeps and waves for that study, the funders. If we go back to the sweeps and waves, we can click on one. And again, this gives us more detail about that wave, including the life stage, population, what kind of data was collected, the coverage in terms of time and geography, the funders, the data sets, including what type of data was collected. And if we click on one of these, this will take us to the data description view that we saw earlier. If we go back and go to questionnaires, this shows the data collections which have taken place, which includes when it took place, the method, who collected it, and the instrument that's associated with it or questionnaire. So we can click on that, and that takes us to the instrument view that we saw earlier. Another way of thinking about using Discovery could be, say you're interested in a specific topic around variables. We could just go straight to variables, and then we could refine by the topic we're interested in. So you'll probably guess what topic I'm going to select. It's not a high-level topic, which is this list here. So I need to click Advanced. And then I'm going to scroll down for alcohol consumption and refine. So this is just another view. Instead of using the explore by topic, you can use the search view and refine by the topic instead. And I'm gonna choose this variable as an example to show a more complicated lineage. So if we look at the lineage, you can see that this is a derived variable. So this is the variable that we are currently looking at. This is the one in bold. And you can see that these variables in grey have been used in order to calculate this derived variable, which is the total audit PC score. Not only does it show you what variables went into creating that derived variable, but it also shows you what questions went into making those variables. And in addition, in this example, it shows that there is another derived variable, the next level up, which used the variable we're looking at as part of its calculation as well. So this is useful for working out the provenance of variables that are more complicated. And I'm going to add that to my list. Okay, so now we've got 4 things in our list. So let's go and have a look at that. So the list is split into 2. So we've got variables and questions, and that's for simplicity. But if you wanted to download a PDF of your list, it will contain both questions and variables. So this is useful for your own record to keep a track of what variables you're interested in, but it also could be useful to send to a study to make a data request. In the PDF itself, it has a link to where to access the data, and here's an example of one which has its data access through a DOI from the UK Data Archive. So say you were interested in more than just alcohol consumption, you might want to make another list on a different topic. And we can do that by going to create a list, and I'll pick a name. So say I want to do smoking, so I'm going to do smoking and create that list. So now you can see on the left hand side, it now says smoking instead of list. So now when I find variables and questions that I'm interested in and click the plus, they will go into this list. Say I wanted to go back to adding alcohol questions and variables, I need to change which list is active. So I'd go back to my list. It's helpfully called list. So what we should probably do is rename it. So I'm going to rename this alcohol. So now I've got a list called smoking and a list called alcohol. And now I'm going to make this list active. And you can see this is now changed to alcohol. And everything that I click the plus on now will go back into this list. Okay, so that's briefly lists. And now I'm coming into the end of the demo. What I would say is the best way to understand how to use Discovery is to have a go, have a play around with it. There are useful pages on Discovery, including the tour, which you may have noticed a banner across most of the pages have a tour, FAQs, how-to guides. I said earlier I'd mention about how to know what's in Discovery and what isn't. If you click on the content page, this will give you a list of all of the Discovery questionnaires and data sets. So what's included and what is planned to be included, just to give you more background if there's anything specific that you're interested in, you wanted to check whether it was there or not. Okay, so as I said earlier, or I've said several times, that Discovery is an ongoing process of adding more content and adding more functionality. So I thought I would finish by talking through what the plans are for the next update, which are happening next month. So this will include COVID-19 questions and variables from the CLOSER studies from the first sweeps. It will also have a new function of showing similar questions across the studies, and this will be for the COVID-19 questions. And we're also making the lists persistent, so you can make them public and they'll have a ID which you then can use like a DOI. So you can add it to a publication, for example, in order for people to see what the variables you've used in your research. If you want to know when these updates have taken place, then you should follow us on Twitter or sign up to our newsletter. If you do have any feedback or suggestions of how we can improve Discovery, then do send us an email. So that's it from me for now, and I'll hand over to Sophie to answer some of your questions. Thank you.